Ding, ding, ding. Here we are. It's 9:30 on New Year's Eve, 9:30 in the morning. And I wasn't sure if I was going to do a live stream today, and I decided that I was going to do it because last night I got back, worked sort of late till about 7 o'clock, and then got home, went for a run late last night, and my brain was just like firing with activity around a lot of ideas and projects that I have outstanding in my mind. And then I woke up this morning doing the same thing. So as I was doing my morning pages, I ended up pausing many times throughout doing the pages just to start writing down and jotting down ideas. And so the good news is that I woke up kind of feeling a little discombobulated in my brain, worried in a sense that I had all of these projects, all of these ideas, here it is, end of the year. And there's this sort of obligation that you're supposed to have completely figured out all the things that you did this past year and all the things you're going to be doing next year. And there's this sort of obligatory thought process that goes into turning the calendar from December to January, when in fact it's just one more day in the year. And so on the other hand, I do want to take time on a regular basis, whether it's New Year's Eve or some random day in the middle of June, to take stock of what I've done and what I've accomplished. And so in today's live stream, what I wanted to do is talk through, I guess, what you would consider a compilation of ideas, thoughts, accomplishments, lessons, whatever they are. And I'm doing this as much for me as I am for anybody who might be watching this, because oftentimes it's easy to forget all the progress that you do make on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis. And even though I didn't spend a ton of time thinking about this and sort of meditating on all the great stuff that I've done and all the things that I've learned over the last year, it was really easy once I sat down for about 45 minutes this morning to start thinking about, like, what have I learned and what are the good ideas and what are some of the thoughts I'm having, what are the things that I've accomplished. So I just started kind of, as I always do, sketched out a numbered list. And so we're going to go through these in some kind of order, more of the order of just kind of how how they kind of came out in my brain. And turns out that there's actually some logical flow to it. And so that's it. So this is what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to get going. It'll probably go a little bit longer than I normally go. And that's okay too, because this will be, in fact, the last live stream of this year. And so here we go with my ideas, lessons, thoughts, accomplishments from 2015. So the first lesson that I learned this year was what I keep referring to as congruence. So earlier in the year, as I was spinning up the full-time effort here on SalesQualia and my work, I was trying to imitate what other folks have done from a digital marketing standpoint. So there's all kinds of digital marketing experts and people that make all kinds of interesting lead magnets, and they have this sort of an ascension plan with their products. I'm talking specifically about people like Ryan Deiss or Brendan Bouchard or Russell Brunson. These are all people that were introduced to me with folks that I've consulted with as I've talked with them about the work that I have been planning to do over the last year. And so it was easy for me to try to imitate exactly what they were doing. And the challenge for me was that as I was trying to imitate the idea of doing like Facebook ads to a lead magnet and trying to use a lead magnet to convert people and get their email address, and then eventually build that email address list up, and then try to market people as a small product, and then upsell them and upsell them and upsell them eventually to what I wanted to be a large coaching program that I'm doing now, a startup selling. The challenge that I had with that is that I just didn't like it. I didn't like doing Facebook ads. I didn't like doing lead magnets. It just wasn't me. I do a lot better when I'm talking with people and I'm sharing ideas and content and in a much more thoughtful form, as opposed to trying to figure out Facebook ads and trying to get people to click at a 2% rate and get those email addresses, and then figure out down the road 6 months how I'm going to sell them a $79 product, and then eventually get them to buy a $10,000 startup selling package. It just didn't sit right with me. And it took me several months to get through some lead magnets that I've been trying, that I've been building. And I keep coming back to this word congruence, in that the activity that I was doing was not congruent with who I am. And so that was kind of one of the biggest lessons that I've learned this year is when I'm doing things, when I'm marketing myself, the best thing I can do is just be myself. And that means doing experiments like this with Livestream. It means writing on Quora, where I can do long form blog posts, introducing the podcast, which I did this year, which is again long form, heavy content, sometimes really dense. Those are the things I enjoy doing. So I enjoy doing those things much, much more than coming up with some lead magnet and trying to figure out how to get a 2% click-through rate on a Facebook ad. So that was probably, if anything, if there's any one lesson that I learned this year, and if I could leave the year with just that one lesson, that would be the lesson is congruence. Make sure that the activity that I'm doing is congruent with the way that I want to present myself and the way that I want to work with people. So that's number one. Now, the second lesson, which I'm actually going to deviate from my list already, is that was number 7, but I'm going to make it number 2, because the way I came up with this idea of congruence was through working with a coach. And so earlier this year, again about midway through the year, back in roughly around April, May, maybe a little bit earlier in the year, I had come to the internal understanding that I wanted to migrate away from my full-time work at Blend as a VP of sales there, and then make SalesQualia my work as a full-time endeavor again. I'd done it briefly a couple of years ago, which is how I ended up at Blend. And I just decided after spending about 1.5 years at Blend that to be congruent with who I am and the life that I want to have, that I needed to make a push back at SalesQualia and make this my life's work. And I knew it would take me a good 6 months to get to that point where I could transition away from Blend and into SalesQualia. So back around April and May, kind of made this plan that I was going to step away from Blend at the end of September, early October. And at that time, I started thinking about the need that I had to work with someone that could help guide me through this process. And so what I realized is that I needed a coach. And that's kind of my second lesson, is that I need someone to help me organize my thinking, give me some frameworks to work from. Someone that can help me focus on creating deliverables on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis, as opposed to getting overwhelmed with a number of ideas and projects and trying to imitate and replicate what other people are doing. And so I worked through a couple of different angles. So I first contacted Jarek Robbins, who I listened to on a podcast with James Altucher earlier in the year. And I was pretty impressed with some of the things he was saying. So I did some interviews with him and not necessarily directly with him, but with his team. And in fact, I had come really, really close to signing up with him as a coaching client. And what was interesting is that getting from the point where I said, yeah, I want to give this a try, to the point where they were starting to implement with me, I just didn't feel like there was a good flow there. And in my gut, I was like, I don't think this is the right guy for me. Then I moved over and I tried Tony Robbins. So I contacted them and talked to some of their coaches. Now, obviously, you don't get a chance to work with Tony Robbins directly, and he's got his whole $billion-dollar enterprise around coaching. And the same thing, I was like, you know what, good stuff here. I could see how people who need a life coach, for example, or need a swift kick in the book to make a major life change, could benefit from somebody like him. Just again, wasn't the right fit. And finally, I emailed a really good friend of mine, and I owe this friend. His name is Jeff Turner, and I owe him for introducing me to somebody named Byron Davis. And so Byron Davis's message is get paid to be you. It's that simple. Get paid to be you. And so this is where this notion of congruence, that lesson of congruence, started to develop within me. In that Byron, in working with him over a 6-month period, doing weekly calls with him, mostly weekly, coming up with ideas and plans and trying things out. And it was working with him where I tried doing some of these lead magnets early on. I hired a marketing consultant that would help me with some of these things, and it wasn't the outcomes that I wanted. As I was continuing to work with Byron on a week-to-week basis, what we realized is that this idea of congruence is so important. And so these two are really gelled together because I learned this lesson of congruence as a result of working with a coach. And so that was my first experience working with a coach, and it was really positive. I'm really glad that I had that opportunity. And that also led me to hiring a second coach, which is specifically a business coach that helps me with my coaching program. His name is Taki Moore, T-A-K-I Moore, and his program is called Black Belt. And so he works with coaches, so he coaches coaches, and that was a second coach that I've hired and I've been working with since August, September. Also really good, giving me really specific frameworks to work from. And so the lessons here is that I need a coach, and it's good to have one. And the investments that I've made in having those coaches have easily paid off, at least 10 times over, and probably more over time. It'll probably be, I can definitely see a path where that payment for a coach will be probably 100x for that investment. So it definitely hurts to write those checks in the short run, and it definitely feels good to have the results of those over the long run. So that was lesson number 2, is that I need a coach. So a couple of other lessons that, as I was thinking about the business and as I'm doing some marketing and things like this. So another lesson I learned this year is that video is not that hard. It seems really hard. It's really intimidating if you haven't done video in the past. I mean, I'm somebody who I've been teaching in a classroom for more than a decade now. Very, very comfortable talking to people. And I often felt like video is really hard. It's really intimidating. And even getting to the point of doing these live streams over the last month, I always felt like, oh, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be perfect. And it turns out that you just need to do it. And everybody always tells you that just get started, just do your first video, get comfortable, and then you can always improve. And I feel like even doing these live streams, I've improved over the last couple of weeks. So I hope. In fact, I even have a viewer now. So that's really cool. And so getting that video done and knowing that it's not that hard and just doing it and always, you can always improve upon it. That was a big lesson for me, is just go ahead and do it. It's something I'd been thinking about doing for years even. I've even experimented a little bit with video in the past, and I never made it a specific pattern or a specific strategy or tactic around my marketing. And so now that I'm doing it, I'm really enjoying it, learning a lot, and I think I'm getting some benefit from it. So video is not that hard. That was lesson number 3. So lesson number 4 is also related to marketing, and this is something I just kind of came up with the last couple of weeks. It's what I call inside out marketing. And so what I mean by inside out, what I talked about a little bit earlier, is this idea that you've got this product or service, and it's really easy to think like, oh, I can just run a Facebook ad and I'll just get people to click on the ad and they'll come to my website and then they'll convert. How hard could that be, right? Well, it's particularly hard because it's really inexpensive to run a Facebook ad, and they make it super easy to do a $5 budget, and you can spend very quickly. You can end up spending hundreds of dollars on these Facebook ads, and they are a science unto themselves, understanding everything from the image to the text to the copy to how the landing pages look. How are you targeting the people that you need to target? How do you find those groups? All of those things is really, really, really hard. And the reason I call that the lesson that I've learned here in inside out marketing is that what I was trying to do is sort of start from the outside. So here's everybody in the world, and then I'm trying to find my segments, and I'm trying to get them into my funnel. I'm trying to get them from never hearing about me and me never knowing who they are, trying to get them through some kind of Facebook ad or some kind of LinkedIn post or AdSense or something like that. Like, hey, click this link and learn about what I do. And it turns out that that's the opposite of what I need to be doing and what has been successful for me over the last couple of weeks now. And so the inside out marketing is taking all of the content I've already done, like hundreds of posts on Quora, hundreds of blog posts, doing these videos on Livestream, doing webinars that I know are adding value to people, doing podcasts, like adding all of this content, and then just finding the right places to place that content. And when I have been doing those things over the last couple of weeks, it has been far more effective in finding new potential conversations, clients, leads, all of those things. Even on LinkedIn, for example, as I'm posting content there, and then I go and check to see who's viewed my profile. If there's somebody that's new that I've never met before that has viewed my profile, and they could be interesting, and what I could see as potentially a match, I just send them an email and say, hey, an in-mail directly on LinkedIn. Saw you came across my profile, kind of curious what brought you here. I was checking out your company, read a little about your profile, blah, blah, blah. Are you interested in chatting? Or how did you come across my profile? Or is there anything in particular I might be able to help you with? So it's like really basic one-on-one kind of marketing. Doing that has been far more effective than trying to do these big Facebook ads. And so my lesson for this past year and moving forward is doing more inside out marketing, meaning focusing on the stuff that I have that's really, really good, and just building slowly out. Because once I do that, then I'll know how to reach these people on the edge that were on the outside that I was trying to reach in the first place. Like trying to go on the outside and pull people in, you have no idea what your message is. You have no idea what one word in the copy of the Facebook ad is going to make people convert or not convert, or what image is going to make people convert or not convert. If you don't know any of that stuff, there's no way to know that stuff unless you really know how you're going to get people into your funnel in the first place and how people are responding. So by focusing on inside out marketing going forward, I'm feeling like this is it's more congruent to the way that I want to do things, and it's going to be far more effective. So that was a big lesson for me. Lesson number 4 was inside out marketing is far more effective than outside in marketing. So those are kind of 4 on the marketing side. Another one, excuse me, another lesson that I've learned is, and just because I've learned this lesson doesn't mean I'm actually doing this, is customer development. So I still need to do this for my own company, for SalesQualia, for the Startup Selling Program. As much as I've worked with entrepreneurs and startup CEOs over the years, doing workshops and coaching and consulting and all those things, I think I know what people want. And I know that when I am delivering my program and my content and my coaching, that is really effective. So even though I think I know, and I'm probably, let's be really arrogant and say like, hey, I know 90% of what people need and want for my target market, there's still that 10% out there that I don't know. And that 10% that I don't know could be the biggest difference between just kind of status quo and slowly growing the company at a nice, slow, even pace, or really hitting growth and explosion mode. And I can see the opportunity to really scale this business. And I think a lot of it is because there's the reason it's not scaling as quickly as it could is that there's an information gap. And that information gap could easily be filled by doing customer development interviews. So it's a lesson that I've learned is that there are things that I don't know. I haven't done it. And so I need to, and even now I'm a little bit scared of saying I will. What I'm saying is I need to do 20 or 30 customer development interviews with startup CEOs and the people that I'm targeting at these enterprise B2B startups. And so I need to get off my butt and go do this instead of always working on the day-to-day. I think focusing on the larger scale, understanding what the market needs is really going to benefit for me. So that's a big lesson learned, as I need to do customer development. So that was number 5. So I think some of these will start going a little bit more quickly. So number 6, I would call the lesson learned here is focus and presence. So when talking about focus and presence, I mentioned this in yesterday's live stream that I've kind of developed this little saying for myself, and I'll modify what I shared yesterday because I misspoke slightly as to what the saying is. So the saying is focus on now, and worry about later. So it's focus on now, and worry about later. So the idea of focusing on now means that, and being present in now, is that whatever task I have ahead of me, whether it's this live stream right now, or after this live stream, if I have a sales call to make, or a blog post to write, or a person to meet, whatever it is that I'm doing, focus on that one thing. Don't try to worry about other things that I need to do this day, this week, this year. Instead of just focusing on now, that allows you to worry. And then when you say worry about later, then you're not worrying now, and you're just kind of like pushing that off. And then eventually later becomes now. And then when later becomes now, and you're focusing on now, you're actually never worrying. You're just focusing on the things that you need to be doing. And that was a big lesson for me. And a lot of that has come from doing personal meditations every day and just trying to be present in both my professional life and, more importantly, in my personal life, whether that is being present with my wife and my son. And like a good example is this morning, I got up early, doing my thing, my routine, and my son woke up a little bit early. We're just back from the East Coast. He's a little bit working on his new biological clock, being back on the West Coast. He woke up around 6:30. And easy thing to do would have been to feel like he was impeding on my personal time. And that sounds terrible to say that because it's my son and I want to get up and I want to spend time with him on New Year's Eve. On the other hand, I had these ideas about how I wanted the day to go, how I want the morning to go. And so I took a moment and said, okay, just be present, just focus on him. And we ended up having a lot of fun playing in the bedroom, playing with these little beads that he has and these pipe cleaners that we attached them together. We ended this big spider web on his bed. We just sat there for like 30 minutes making this thing. And it was a lot of fun. And just being present and focusing on that made that time with him so much better. So at one point I was even tempted. I grabbed my cell phone. I was just about to take it off airplane mode. And sorry, I just had a little notice I have to clear out. I was just about to take my my phone off of airplane mode to check my email just to see what was going on that day for today, anything that came in last night. And I hit the button. I hit airplane mode off, and the signal was just searching. And I was like, no, don't do this. And I turned it back on and pushed this phone aside. So it takes a lot of mental effort for me to be present, and I'm really glad that I was, because it turned out to be a lot of fun time. And then I was able to transition into work Scott after we got him settled for breakfast and that kind of thing. So that's the next lesson learned, which is focus and presence. Focus on what's here, be present, worry about the other stuff, worry about tomorrow, or worry about later. So that's lesson 6, I think. 2, 3, yep, 6. Okay, so other lessons. So I'll stick with some business stuff here, and this is kind of operational. These are kind of operational lessons that I learned. So one of the things that I learned this year is to be really, really clear on directions, timelines, and reasons for doing things. So as I had been ramping up the work and the marketing and the operational side of the business here, I have been using a lot of outsourced work. So I've been to Upwork. I use Upwork. I've got 4 or 5 virtual assistants on Upwork that do different kind of stuff for me. One is a designer who does marketing stuff. I've got another person who does web research. I've got another person who does transcriptions, another person that does video editing, another one does audio editing, audio editing of podcasts, those kinds of things. And what I've learned is that I have to be super clear on the directions that I want those people to do, like how I want those people to do things, and by when I want them to be done. And even more so internally, so working with one of the people that I work with in SalesQualia, his name is Robert. I think I've mentioned him a couple of times. And he is kind of our operations and product guy. And I had given to him a bunch of different projects to work on, operational stuff. And we weren't making the progress that we wanted to make on it. And partly, a big part of it was that I wasn't really clear on the end, what I wanted. Just saying, hey, we need these things. Wasn't really being really clear on how to get there. And most importantly, it wasn't really clear why they were important. So a couple of weeks ago, I kind of went through those projects and I outlined, okay, this is the project. This is where I think it is. This is where it needs to be. And here is why it's important. I specifically wrote, why is this important in bold, and then answered that question in 2 or 3 sentences for each individual project. And I think for him, it helped make things really clear for him. Like, man, okay, I didn't realize that this thing was so important. I didn't realize that we were lagging. I didn't realize there was this timeline that you want to get these things out by Thanksgiving or by Christmas. So that's given us some like extra sort of like push to get some of these things done. And so that's a big lesson for me, is just because I think it doesn't mean people, and even if I say it, it doesn't mean that people understand exactly what I want. And so I need to say what I want, repeat those things, be really clear, give people reasons why. And then that's also related to what I would consider, so that was lesson number 7. Lesson number 8 would be to be really diligent about tracking projects, tracking metrics, things that I need to measure. And so these metrics really matter. And so over the last couple of weeks, I've been following the advice of David Cummings, who was CEO of Pardo, which sold this to Salesforce, and he writes really great blog posts. And one of his emails, or one of his blog posts at the end of November, was around having tracking metrics. And he had this really good weekly email to use as a template to send out to your team, and then talked about the importance of having tracking metrics for your business. And so I put together a dashboard as a Google spreadsheet. And now every week I track a number of different metrics, and those range from Quora posts views, how many people have liked and shared those views, how many people have downloaded our podcast over the last week. It tracks how many people we have on our mailing list, our email list, how many people have opened a recent email campaign that we've had. Pretty much every part of our marketing. I track how many new sales calls I'm doing, how many advanced sales calls I'm doing, basically tracking all of these things. And just by doing this tracking on a week-to-week basis, it's enabled me to see where I am spending time and where I'm not spending time, and what are the results of doing some of this work. And so by being, I would say this is kind of related to the last lesson about being clear with directions, timelines, and reasons, in that it's being clear about what's important with the business. And so tracking those things and making sure that they are, that I'm able to quantify the reasons behind the what behind the stuff that we're doing and the why behind the stuff that we're doing. So that was definitely a big lesson learned this year. So related to this, some other operational stuff, the big lesson I learned is to plan and stick to the schedule. So a couple of weeks ago, early December, got together with Robert. We talked through marketing ideas, kind of sat down with index cards. We actually were on this table. We had a stack of index cards, and we spent 10 minutes each just writing down marketing ideas for the business going into next year. And then we sorted those and we rank ordered them and basically said, okay, we had probably 30, 40 ideas on these index cards. And we said, okay, what if we can only do 5? What would those 5 be? So he voted, then I voted, and then independently, and then we put those lists together. We came up with, what is our marketing plan for 2016? What are the 5 things that we're going to be doing every week or every month as a way to promote and convert people to new customers? And so I started, I've already put that marketing schedule into 2016 calendar. And this past month, I've started experimenting and almost practicing that schedule ahead of time. So I haven't been as diligent on the schedule as I will be starting next week. It's definitely been useful, though, to see that when I have a plan and I stick to that plan, magic happens. Magic definitely happens when I am writing blog posts on Quora, when I'm sharing content on LinkedIn, when I'm doing these live streams, when we're doing podcasts. As we're pushing out content and I'm sticking to this plan, I'm getting more inbound leads. Like, shocking how that works. And so like that was a big lesson in that, going back to something I talked about earlier, is like having all these ideas and being overwhelmed with the number of projects. Once you do the analytics and do the analysis behind which of the projects that are congruent with the way that you want to market the business and are things that you're good at, now all of a sudden you've got this plan, you stick to that stuff. And when you stick to that stuff, good things happen. And so this is, that was a big lesson for me this year. And it also is related to a related lesson, which is, I wrote down here that, let me see where it is exactly. Oh, so that was lesson roughly 9, maybe. Also lesson 10, it doesn't really matter what these numbers are. These are just lessons. So number 10 was following my routine each day. So just like having a plan for the week from a marketing standpoint is really important. I would also say that a big lesson for me is that when I follow my daily routine each day, good things happen. And so my morning routine is getting up early, doing morning pages, doing a meditation, and then at some point during the day, making sure that I'm exercising. And so one of the ways that I do that on the exercise piece is signing up for races. Like I did a 50-mile endurance race in December. And so I signed up for that back in August. So that made sure that every day, or pretty much every day, I would have some kind of exercise I would need to do, whether it's running or cycling or stretching or weightlifting, whatever it is, to get ready for that. And so when I do those 3 things, the pages, my morning pages, my meditation, and my exercise, that is my routine. Everything else is almost extra. If I do those 3 things every day, then I know I've had a good day. And so it allows me to think more clearly, with a lot more clarity. And even though those things take a lot of time, and it compresses the amount of time I have left in the day to do work, the work that I'm doing is far more effective, and I'm much more efficient with that. And so just like planning that schedule every single week and sticking to that schedule from a marketing standpoint, personally, that lesson, which is roughly number 10, is following my routine every day makes sense. And when I follow that routine, good things happen. And so I'm just sticking to that every day, doing that routine, and looking for ways to modify and improve upon it. So I've got a few more here. I'll keep going. Let's see. Here's a lesson I wrote down. We'll call this number 11, that there's definitely more projects and ideas than time. So there's definitely more projects and idea than time by a long shot. And this is just a fact of life. And there's stuff that I should do, and there's things that I need to do, and there's stuff that I end up doing. And so there's only so much I can do. And this goes back to having that schedule, being committed to the things that I know are going to work, and just being okay with ideas. So this morning, as I was doing morning pages, so these are, I think I've talked about this before, but this is an example of morning pages where I just write out 3 pages. Today went a little long. I did 3.5, as I was writing these pages out, I kept getting distracted with all these ideas. And so I started writing them down on a separate sheet of paper under 3 sections: so attract, convert, and deliver. So attracting new customers, converting new customers, and delivering to customers. And these are just ideas that I started writing down. And there's no way I'm going to get to all this stuff, and that's okay, right? There's more ideas than there is time. And so of the things that are most important, I'll get to them if I stick to my routine and stick to my plan. So it's definitely like being an entrepreneur, running my own business. There's far more ideas than there is time. And that for me has been a bit like sort of like letting go with that and being okay with that is a big lesson that I've learned this year. Another lesson, so we'll call this number 12, everything is a process. So things always, there is no easy thing to do, right? So whether it's anything from answering a question on Quora, which I know is always, like I've written there for years now, and I know that's a process for me to find a question, do the outline, do the editing, and then post it. But more specifically, thinking about other ideas that I've come up with this year, like the podcast. We're like, oh, we'll just do a podcast. How hard could that be? Well, it turns out there's a big process to getting a podcast up and running, right? So first, it's not just like coming up with topics and ideas. There's everything from, okay, what platform are you going to use? Are you going to use Libsyn, which is what we ended up using? Okay, great. You're going to use Libsyn. Well, you have to get all that configured. And then you're going to get on iTunes. Okay, well, you have to apply to get on iTunes. And then you have to have artwork for your podcast. Like, okay, where do you get the artwork from? Well, I just found a virtual assistant in Pakistan to do that for me. And then I've got to go explain to him what I want in that artwork. And then it's got to be revised. And then it's got to get uploaded. And then so you got all that stuff up and running, and you actually do the recording. Great. So now I have this recording, and we have to post that into Libsyn. But oh, wait, before we post into Libsyn, we have to edit it. Okay, who's going to do the editing? Well, I can either do it myself and take a couple hours, or I can pay somebody overseas to do that virtual assistant work for me. So I've got to go through that whole process of training somebody to do the audio editing. So then we get the audio editing back. Like, oh, we want to do show notes. Well, how are we going to do show notes? Well, we should transcribe the podcast and then have somebody summarize those into show notes. That's a process going through all that. So you say like, hey, we're just going to do this podcast. Everybody says like, oh, you should just do podcasting. That's really great. It's a great way to differentiate yourself. So we're like, oh, okay, great. Let's do a podcast. And now we are roughly 3 months in and 14, 15 episodes in, and just now starting to feel like, okay, we have a flow here. And that's just, there's a process to this. I mentioned earlier about doing the Facebook ads and the lead magnets. Same thing. It's like, oh, how hard could that be? But just, come up with a lead magnet, post it, do a Facebook ad, and get people to click on it, convert it, and then I'll get email address as well. Coming up with ideas for lead magnet, then writing them out, and then copy editing those, and then getting a designer to put that copy into a design that you like, and the back and forth between the design, and then finding a place to upload and host that lead magnet on a landing page, whether that's ClickFunnels or a WordPress landing page or some other Lander app page, whatever that is. That's a process, right? Then coming up with a Facebook ad, coming up with the copy, writing the copy, learning how to write copy. So like all of these things are such an enormous process that when you commit to something, you really have to be prepared for all the stuff you have no idea exists in order to do that thing, whether it's a lead magnet or a podcast or planning a live event of something else we did. We planned a live event for December, and we had all of these things we didn't realize that were ahead of us in order to get that thing executed. So learning that everything is a process and just accepting that and being willing to kind of break down that project into smaller pieces has been something that has been a big lesson for me this year. So let's see, a couple more, and then I think I'll wrap up. So the last few are actually related to just more time management. So one of the lessons is making time to do sales calls, which sounds really bizarre for somebody who teaches people coaching, I coach people on finding customers, growing revenue, and building their sales process. Yet I still have to make time, schedule time to do sales calls, to do my sales activity. And it was a big lesson for me. I was listening to an audiobook. It's called Ready, Fire, Aim. And as I was listening to the audiobook, it was just about the time that I was launching the Startup Selling Coaching Program back in October. And I was sitting there like doing all this time, spending all this time thinking about the program and the content and who I'm going to market to and how much I'm going to charge and all these different things. And as I'm listening to this book, the author of the book said, as an early stage company, the only most important thing you can do as a CEO is focus on getting customers. And this is what I tell people when I'm coaching them. It's the most important thing you can do as a startup CEO, go out and find customers. And I wasn't doing it. It's like, it was like ridiculous to me. I'm sitting there on the Amtrak bus listening to this podcast, and I was like, holy crap. I'm not doing the one thing that I should be doing, which is going and finding customers. And so I took it upon myself. I did this 1 week challenge. I said I'm gonna do 10 sales calls a day for a week. And I didn't even get to 10 every day. I did probably 35 or 40 in that week. So the lesson was like, wow, it's actually really hard to do 10 sales calls in a week, or in a day, excuse me, because it takes a lot of time. You have to find people, you have to prospect, you have to prepare, you have to call them or email them or set up appointments and do all those things. And the second thing is that when I did these sales calls, guess what? Magical things happened. All of a sudden, I started finding clients for the Startup Selling Program. It's like, duh. So go out there and sell. And so the lesson for me, it just, again, it sounds ridiculous for somebody who's been selling for almost 20 years and teaches people how to sell, that I needed to go and make sure I was blocking out time to make sales calls. And this is one of the reasons why one of the previous lessons I talked about was metrics, that tracking the number of actual introductory calls that I'm making with people. And that process of doing an introductory call, then a strategy call, and then converting them into the program. And as I'm tracking those on a week-to-week basis over the last couple of weeks, I realized like, hey, I'm not doing very many introductory calls the last couple of weeks, and I haven't signed up any new clients. Well, I wonder why that is. So the lesson for me is making sure that I'm doing these sales calls each and every day, each and every week, because that is the only way you're going to get new customers. So it's still astonishing to me that that was a lesson I have learned. So the other time management piece that I've learned is just making time for myself. So that means scheduling exercise. I like put it in my calendar. From 12 to 2, I'm going for a run, or from 3 to 4, I'm going to go do a CrossFit workout, whatever that is, because I need to do these things. Like the exercises is really, really critical to me. It's important for my body, important for my mind. And so that was a big lesson for myself, is that I needed to make time for myself, and just reminding myself of this lesson. So that was like roughly lesson 13 or 14. And I think that the last lesson that I want to share here, I just wrote this out. It's really brief what I wrote down. It actually is a much larger lesson. And so what I wrote down here as the last lesson is take a break. Take a break. And so that means in a day, I'm working here in the office, it's 2 in the afternoon, I'm feeling tired, get up and go for a walk. Like, it doesn't matter. You can take 10 minutes to go for a walk around the block. It doesn't matter if it's raining, doesn't matter if it's cold, doesn't matter if it's hot. Take a break. Take a break also means take a break from myself, take a break from the business. So I was able to do that over Christmas. I spent 4 straight days of free days from Christmas Eve till Sunday. Didn't do any work at all. Didn't check my email. Didn't do any text. Didn't do any phone calls. And guess what? The world didn't end, right? So like kind of taking a break from myself and from all of the energy that I'm pouring into the work that I'm doing, I've got to take a break. And when I take a break and get some rest, whether it's 10 minutes around the block or a couple of days over the weekend, then I always come back rejuvenated. I came back on Monday after those 4 days off, and I only had about 3 or 4 hours to work that I had available to work because of other things I was doing with family and those kinds of things. Those 3 or 4 hours, I was firing. I was just absolutely firing. I felt great. And so it was just a reminder of that lesson that I need to take a break. So those are my lessons, and these are the things that I'm thinking about right now. It's New Year's Eve, and like I said in the beginning, it's not necessarily that you have to do these things on New Year's Eve. I guess I kind of feel obligated to do it. It's just one day in the year. It's the end of one month, the start of another month, which you get 12 of those. So it's not that I'm feeling like if I don't do it now, then I'll never do it. But on the other hand, it's as good a time as any to take a look back and think about things that I've learned. So I am feeling really good about things that I've learned. There's lots more stuff I want to do. I've got a lot more things ahead. I also feel really good about the lessons that I learned. A year ago, I was in Boise, Idaho, and it was Christmas break, and I was working from a coffee shop and thinking to myself, I don't want to be working at Blend full time anymore. At some point, I need to make a break this year, meaning 2015. And that was a year ago, a little more than a year ago, a year and a week ago. And through some really deliberate planning and methodology and getting from understanding month to month from the early that thought process a year ago to in April and May, finding a coach, working through ideas in the summer, committing to teaching at Holt International Business School in the fall. I did that back in April and May. It was setting myself up for the opportunity to make that break that I wanted to make at the end of September. And so here I am a year later, and I've got my own company, and the world hasn't ended. People are paying me money because I'm providing a valuable service. And I'm happier now than I was a year ago. I'm happier now than I was 3 months ago. And my life is better. My family's life is better. We are definitely moving in the right direction. We've already planned out next year on the personal level, trips that we're taking, places we're going to go, things we're going to do. And now I have that freedom to do those things. And so I feel really content. I guess I say I'm content, but I know that there's more stuff I want to do. I do feel at this moment content when I look down at all these things that I've learned and all the ideas that I have ahead, that this has been a really good year, and I'm really grateful and really thankful for all of these opportunities. And oftentimes when I'm doing my morning pages, one of the things that I often do somewhere around 2 or 3 towards the end of the second or third page, I just take some time and write down things that I'm thankful for. I'm thankful for the opportunities to help other people. I'm thankful that people that have started their own companies are trusting me to help them with their dreams and with their ideas. I'm thankful for my health. I'm thankful for my house. I'm thankful. A lot of times I'm just thankful for that cup of coffee that's sitting in front of me. It's nice and hot, smells good. And a lot of times I like to eat a banana with my coffee. So I'm thankful for that banana that I'm eating. So just taking stock of all the things I'm thankful for, both really large, but also really small. So I feel really, really fortunate to have these opportunities. And I feel fortunate to have my health and my family and the life that I've been building for myself. So definitely excited for next year. I'm very happy and content with this year. And if I got from last year going from, man, I need to make a change, I went from that, just the ideas, to now at the end of the year, having a real company that's functioning and helping people and making money. If I did that in a year while doing all the other crazy stuff I was doing this year, which included, like I said, working at Blend for the first 9 months of the year, my wife was finishing her PhD, raising a child. I did 4 endurance races. I did 2 triathlons, including a half Ironman, did a swim to Alcatraz and back, 2.5-mile swim. And most recently did a 50-mile endurance run. I did all of those things too. Spent time with family, had trips to New Jersey 3 times this year, trips to Idaho over the summer, to visit family, trip to Portland to visit family over Thanksgiving. So like all of those things were going on, and I made all of this progress. And so I'm feeling like next year is when I do the same live stream and there's more than 1 viewer, maybe there's hundreds, maybe there's not, maybe there's 0, it doesn't matter. I just know that a year from now, things are going to be different in a really good way. And if they're not different in a good way, then I will hopefully have the mental fortitude and the ability and the mindfulness to just accept that and know that whatever condition that I'm in a year from now, if it's in a negative situation, that it's temporary and that I'll figure a way through it and accept that. So, okay. So that was definitely by far the longest live stream I've done. I wanted to share those ideas and thoughts and accomplishments and everything else around it. So if I've got 1 person watching. I have no idea who you are. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Thanks for hanging in there with me this long. If you're watching the recording and you did make it this far, then thanks for watching. If you didn't make it this far, well, maybe next time. So this is it for me, 2015, Scott Sambucci, signing off. Have a great new year. See ya.